Filmmaker Anurag Kashyap wrote something appalling on social media. Quote, I would urinate on Brahmins. Any problem? End quote. This unprovoked outburst didn't stop with a post but raged on unabated for hours as he kept hurling one filthy abuse after another. As the days went by, he doubled down on his hatred instead of showing any regret, writing an apology note that sounded like a threat. Why is this kind of speech tolerated and even celebrated in some circles? Because it echoes a much older narrative, a colonial narrative. To understand the roots of institutional anti-Brahminism in India, we need to travel back to early 20th century Maharashtra, to a princely state called Kolhapur. Here a ruler named Chhatrapati Shahuji Maharaj launched a socio-political revolution. On the surface, Shahuji was a reformer, a forward-thinking monarch who advocated for education, social justice, and anti-casteism. But peel back the layers, and a more insidious picture emerges. Historian Ian Copland writes that Shahuji's regime from 1902 to 1910 became the epicenter of organized anti-Brahmin activism. In his administration, Brahmin officials were dismissed en masse from educational and administrative posts. Funds were redirected from Sanskrit schools and Gurukuls to support institutions focused on rational and modern education. A powerful press propaganda machine was set up to portray Brahmins as exploiters, using language that eerily mirrors modern anti-Hindu narratives. But this wasn't just about social justice, it was geopolitics. Shahuji Maharaj's anti-Brahmin stance earned him praise and patronage from the British Raj. Why? Because Brahmins across Maharashtra had become a hotbed of anti-colonial nationalism. The region was home to leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar, and Gopal Krishna Gokhale, all Brahmins. Newspapers like Kesari were fire-breathing critiques of British tyranny. In 1879, the collector of Tanjore admitted there was no class except Brahmins which was so hostile to the English. CIB reports during the freedom struggle stated that up to 70% of those killed by British bullets were Brahmins. In Bengal, Brahmins were 5% of the population but made up over 40% of the early Congress leadership. In Maharashtra, they were just 4%, yet led the entire intellectual anti-colonial movement. Brahmins weren't oppressors, they were the resistors, and the British were alarmed. One confidential British memo from the Bombay Presidency in 1905 described Brahmins as over-educated, dangerously articulate, and emotionally committed to sedition. In contrast, Shahuji was seen as a loyal prince, a native who could carry out colonial policies under the guise of social reform. According to Copland, the British welcomed the rise of Shahuji's anti-Brahmin politics not because they believed in caste justice, but because it fractured elite Hindu unity. This collaboration wasn't subtle. British officers in Bombay Presidency openly encouraged Kolhapur's reforms. Anti-Brahmin newspapers like Deen Bandhu were funded and circulated under official protection. Non-Brahmin conferences were allowed to operate with virtually no censorship, unlike nationalist gatherings which faced constant surveillance. Shahuji Maharaj died in 1922, but the non-Brahmin movement he launched would outlive him and eventually grow into the Dravidian movement, the Dalit political blocs, the Ambedkarite narrative, and modern reservation-era caste politics, and even Bollywood films like Phule, whose censorship triggered Anurag Kashyap. Fast forward to post-independence India. The 1990 Mandal Commission declared 52% of India's population as OBCs without conducting a full caste census. Ironically, Brahmins, never more than 5% of the population, are now excluded from nearly all affirmative action programs, despite clear data showing their economic decline. A study by J. Radhakrishna found that in Andhra Pradesh, 100% of Purohits surveyed lived below the poverty line. 80% said they were routinely mocked for their attire and hair tuft. More than a decade before the Mandal Commission recommendations were implemented, The Karnataka finance minister in the state assembly on July 1, 1978, reported a striking economic disparity, with Brahmins at the bottom. While Christians earned Rs 1,562 per capita and Vocaligas Rs 914, Brahmins made just Rs 537, even lower than scheduled tribes at Rs 577 and scheduled castes at Rs 680. Despite this, Brahmins are painted as the cause, not victims of social inequity. What is the lived reality of Brahmins in India today? Over 70% of Brahmins in rural areas live in poverty. Many traditional jobs, priests, astrologers, Ayurvedic healers, have no legal protection or income stability. Less than 5% of Brahmins hold influential posts in government or media today, despite public perceptions. Brahmins are mocked for doing their traditional duties, but blocked from entering new spheres through quotas and political rhetoric. So when a filmmaker says, "urinate on Brahmins," he's not being edgy. He's repeating lines from a 19th century British playbook. But what is most oddly disturbing is the nonchalance of the film fraternity towards the expression of genocidal hatred by a member of their club. Kashyap's Brahmin colleagues, the Vajpayis, Shuklas, Mishras and Tripathis. Did a cat get their tongue? Perhaps Bollywood needs its very own self-respect movement.